guys, here come the dollies. They got fresh sinkers, hot coffee, and the sweetest smile.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the Clubmobile.
Hey everybody.
Thanks for joining us again. I'm very excited for this one. I say that about every single one.
I'm always
I'll never
excited.
stop saying that.
No, I don't think I'll ever stop being excited to do this.
No, me either.
I think the reason I get excited is because it's so different and it deviates from what I do every day during the week.
Yeah, no, it's the same here, I think. That's why
It's
I get
just,
so...
it's not 9 to 5, it's not a cubicle, and it's not a terrible commute.
Exactly.
The commute is from my bedroom to my living room where I sit and record these.
Exactly. And you get to have your own coffee in your own
Mm-hmm.
house and
I
all the other
do.
good stuff.
I do. So I think that's why I always get so excited.
We get so excited. Ever since reading about these two women in Our Mother's War by Emily Yellen, I have been dying to speak about these two women for very different reasons.
Yeah.
I'm excited to talk about one purely because of how much of an opinion I have on her. And I'm excited to talk about the other to show the amount of prejudice against Japanese Americans during this time.
You have an opinion on something? I'm shocked.
Which I know was to be expected.
Yeah.
During the time they were facing a lot of racial prejudice, they sort of bundled every Japanese American together and thought they were all to blame for the country going to war.
Yeah.
To the point where they wouldn't even differentiate between a Chinese person and a Japanese person. It was just sort of every Asian is bad. So
yeah,
as much as I'm excited to talk about it, I feel like it's a difficult topic to broach.
But that's the war, right? So
yes,
I
the
mean,
war wasn't all fun hairstyles and USO dances and women being lovely to GIs. It was the other side of it was so gritty and violent that it's such an important thing to talk about. And there were many people that did not agree with the war, obviously, but a lot of these people became turncoats. And one of these women we'll be talking about betrayed her country. So yeah, it's going to be a difficult one, despite being excited to speak about them both.
That's what we're here to do, right? That's
exactly.
That's the job we've taken on.
Yes. Absolutely.
So should we tell them who we're talking about?
Yes, we'll be talking about Axis Sally and Tokyo Rose, two radio hosts who were supposed to be going against the Allied soldiers. One chose to, the other one I feel had no choice. So let's get into it, I guess.
Let's get into it. I'm very interested in, and I'm very interested. It piqued my interest immediately when we started reading about Axis Sally. How quickly she turned on a dime, right?
She turned very quickly, and it seems to be all for a man. It seems to be for someone that she met as she was growing up here in the US. She was born here in the US. She was born in Portland, Oregon.
And she was born Mildred Elizabeth Sisk in 1900 in Portland, Oregon. So she's American citizen through and through.
She was born here. She was born to American parents. She grew up in Ohio, and she enrolled in university to study dramatic art, but she never graduated from that. But from there, she began to forge a vaudeville career, but it never...
Which a lot of women did during that time. Like, you want to be in the pictures, you become a vaudeville star or just a vaudeville actor.
Especially to be someone in performing arts, it was sort of the starting point of being noticed and becoming the movie star that you wanted. But it never panned out for her. So with the way her story goes, it sort of seems like she would pick anything to perform. But it seemed that she picked the very worst thing imaginable to have her voice heard and to be seen as someone famous.
when it didn't pan out for her here in the States,
Mm.
so when it didn't pan out for her in the States, she picked up and moved to Germany. She's 33 years old at this point. So
Hmm.
she's a grown up. She's not a kid anymore.
She's
She's a
mature
grown
enough to
woman,
know what she's
mature enough to
doing.
know what she's doing. She picks up, leaves the States, follows a former professor of hers who was German born,
Yep. Yep. Also married.
also
And they were
married.
having
She
an
was having an
affair.
affair with him.
He remains unnamed in everything I've looked at in the book
Amazing
that
how
I
they
just
it's amazing
mentioned.
how they protect the identity of the
I
man.
know, isn't
You
it?
know that's immediately
Um,
where I went is that
yeah,
they're
of
protecting the
all
identity
people.
of this guy.
Yes. He's
And
never
without a
named.
doubt, the Nazis were protecting his identity.
Oh, for sure.
Mhm.
Absolutely. It was him who got her the job
Yeah.
in the at the Nazi radio station in which she became famous.
Yeah. So he was
He was
enlisted by the Nazis in charge of propaganda.
pretty
So he was in
much,
charge of
yeah.
broadcasting propaganda. He brings in his girlfriend and
Yes.
says, "You're gonna do X, Y, and Z. You're gonna do the
Hmm.
propaganda broadcasts."
And she fully agrees to
She
it.
fully
She does
agrees.
not. Hmm.
So in 41, she goes on the air. That's it. That's her first.
Yes, that's her first propaganda airing, essentially.
And she goes on the
And
air
she,
as Midge.
yes, or Midget the Mic. It was the GIs that dubbed her Axis Sally at a later date.
Yeah.
Um, the GIs seem to have a nickname for every Axis woman they heard on the radio, be it Nazi Germany, be it in the Pacific theater
Yeah.
of war, they had a name. But there was another woman, she was an Italian woman called Rita Zucco, and
Yeah.
she dubbed herself Axis Sally. And Mildred Gill is here sort of got the hump that she was copying her. She was mad about it. She wasn't happy with the fact that someone was copying her brand, essentially. She wanted to be the only one that was
Whereas the brand
spouting
wasn't
this.
even, she was
Yeah,
given the name. It wasn't.
yeah. She was given the name and she took it and then she named herself that as well.
I'm always, like I said earlier, it amazes me how she turned on a dime because now she follows
Mm.
her boyfriend,
Yep.
follows him to into Nazi Germany, takes up this job as a propaganda broadcaster.
Mm-hmm.
She goes on the air as Midge at the mic. She becomes Axis Sally. And in the same year, she decides, I'm going to renounce my American citizenship, the place
Yep.
where I was born, the place I was raised. I'm going to renounce my
Mm-hmm.
American citizenship to stay here
Yep. All
and
in the
work with
name
the
of
Axis
Nazism.
powers.
Yeah. So the same year she goes on air for the first time, the US State Department are advising American nationals to leave Germany
Right.
for their own protection, even if they were American born but had German ancestry. The US Department was telling them that they should leave for their own safety
Yeah.
and for the safety of their country. However, Mildred Gillis chose to remain in Germany and she signed away her US citizenship. And I believe through marriage of someone else, not even the boyfriend she followed, she became a German citizen through marriage. It's never
Yeah.
really fully explained anywhere because the story gets so that tiny bit seems meaningless in comparison to
It
everything else
does.
she
That
did. Does
little
that make
tiny bit
sense?
that she married a German citizen is like
Yeah,
minuscule in comparison to
in
everything else that she
comparison
did.
to everything.
I I
So yeah.
mean, she was a nasty son of a gun.
Oh yeah, a lot of vitriol, a lot of
Why?
venom in her words.
And
She
there I am
essentially
censoring. There
turned.
I am censoring myself. She was a bitch. Why am I
She
censoring myself?
was.
She was a bitch.
She absolutely was. She turned on her country's government and used her voice to aid the other side.
Not even
Um,
that. It's the part where it's the bit where she posed as Red Cross workers and went into POW camps.
oh my goodness, when I read this for the
That
first
gets me
time,
so mad.
my breath was caught in my throat. What she would do is she would go into these POW camps in Germany and in the surrounding
Yeah.
areas, and she would go to these downed airmen, these prisoners of war, and say to them that she was a Red Cross worker and she had a way to record their voices for their families. And she promised that she would send these recordings to the families of these downed soldiers, of these
Yeah.
POWs.
And what comes off as more true? I mean, she's American born. She's English is her first language. She's walking the walk, talking the talk. She's really she is hidden in plain sight at this point.
Yes, you would not suspect that she, obviously because you're on the radio, your picture is not seen, you're not on the television, obviously at the time. No one knows who she is or what she looks like.
Yeah.
So of course you're going to believe when a Red Cross aid worker comes into a prisoner of war camp, you are going to believe that you are speaking to someone who was on your side.
Yeah.
But what she would do is she would take the recordings back to her job at the radio and manipulate them. And she would add anti-American comments and she would add anti-Semitic comments. She would literally like intersperse her opinions through
AI before AI.
voices. Yeah. She would make these recordings that were supposed to be for families, which I am sure were so vulnerable.
God.
And so full of love and like, I miss you, I'm homesick, I've been here for X amount of time. And she took them and manipulated them and did it for her own gain.
That was immediately the moment where I said, I have zero sympathy for this woman.
Evil.
Zero sympathy.
Yeah. Like she would play, she used her Americanism to her advantage.
Old enough to know better.
Oh, absolutely. She would play American music.
Yeah.
And then she would intersperse the music with talk to make the men feel discouraged and even more homesick, so that they would feel that their country wasn't worth fighting for. It's like silly comments like your wife's cheating on you with a 4F, or your president doesn't care about you, you're there to die, essentially. They've sent you on this suicide mission for no reason because we're going to win anyway. It was horrific, absolutely horrific. And
as an American, it makes me angry.
Oh yeah, even as myself, not an American, but someone that lives here, I see how much pride a lot of people have for their country here. We don't really have this in England. We don't really have this kind of patriotism. But I've come across a lot of people here who are so patriotic. And I know that during World War II, people were way more patriotic than they are now.
Oh, yeah. I always say it comes and goes in waves in this country. And it's like, you know, it happened during World War II. And then, I mean, as far as my memory, 9/11 was when this country really picked itself up and put itself together. You know, a lot of people say, you know, America should be what it was on September 12th, but that's a conversation for another time. But I mean, that's when you really see like these times of trying trauma is when you see America really pick up the pieces and band together.
And come together.
Yeah. It's, you know, which is why it gets me so that as I'm reading this, I'm like, this is so disgusting.
It makes you so angry.
It does. It makes you so angry to read it, that she was that calculated. Calculated is the word I want to use. She was that conniving. She was that calculated that she said, she basically put her middle finger in the air.
Pretty much.
And you know, fuck you to the country that raised me.
Yeah. She would use the broadcast to talk terribly about the president, and especially about Jewish people. There is a quote here that I will not repeat. I felt it important for us to have it in our notes, but I'm not going to repeat it for everyone else because it's not good. She carried on this horrific rhetoric all the way through until 1945. And there was a special broadcast that someone she worked with wrote. And it was essentially a radio play. And she played a mother of a downed American soldier. And this mother had dreamt about her son. And he had essentially come to his mother and said, this wasn't even worth it because the Nazis have won anyway. That's the short version of it. And that was the only count of treason she was tried on, because even though she had renounced her citizenship, she still posed as an American. This is where it gets a little confusing, because she renounces her citizenship, but then is brought back to the US and tried on 10 counts of treason. So I'm not entirely sure where that fits in together, because she renounces her citizenship, yet she's tried for treason in her home country, but she's renounced the citizenship. That part always kind of confuses me.
It could always be a case of,
Um,
did she renounce it? Did she go through the proper channels to renounce it, or did she just kind
or
of
did she just
or did she
publicly
just throw
say,
her hands up and say, F
yeah,
America, I'm not staying here. I'm staying in
pretty
Germany, and
much.
kind of
Yeah.
not decide, because she was American
Yes.
born. She's got American documents. She's got American papers,
Yeah.
a passport. I mean,
Hmm.
if you don't properly decide to say, it's not like now where you're like, I'm going to move into another country. I'm going to go through the proper
Yeah.
channels to become a citizen of that country. It's
Yeah.
not like
I'm
it
not
is
sure of the
today where you got to
process
have
then.
every document, a blood sample, and, an organ to get it
A
done.
firstborn child, three fingers, not your
It's
own fingers, just anyone's fingers.
it's a
Um,
different everything was different then. So it
yeah,
could have been a case of she renounced it on the air and just said,
publicly,
I've
but didn't.
decided,
Yeah.
and publicly renounced it, but not officially, which is where they had the
Hmm.
juice to bring her back and try her
Yeah.
for treason.
It wasn't until 1948 that they brought her back. Um,
Oh, yeah.
but she was brought to trial on 10 counts of treason, but was found guilty on only one. And it was the broadcast I mentioned. It was called Vision of Invasion, about the mother having the dream about her son.
They should have tried
Um,
her for posing as a Red Cross worker, but what do I know?
yeah, I'm not sure if that
Oh,
counted in. I'm not sure if that counted in the 10 counts of treason, but
mm,
because there was no hard evidence or hard proof apart from one man who I
mm.
believe was in the 8th Air Force. But when you Google his name, it's such a common name, you get nothing. Um, he was a pilot in the 8th, and he was a down soldier in a POW camp. And he was the one that pointed out and said, "This is who I spoke to," at the time. But the trial lasted 3 months, and she was convicted of that one count of treason in 1949 and was sentenced to 10 to 30 years and was given a $10,000 fine. She was granted parole and released in 1961.
Okay, so
During her
she
time
served
in prison,
12 years.
yeah, 12 years. During her time in prison, she converted to Catholicism,
They all find God when they have something to be guilty of.
which is quite confusing because a
My
lot
mother is
of
my mother has entered the chat. They all find God when they got something to be guilty of. We don't mean that to be
um,
disrespectful to my mother. It's true
they,
though. The way I said it sounded just like my mother. Serves 12 years, gets a $10,000 fine, finds God in
yeah,
prison.
yes, which I find really interesting because a lot of people who were associated with the Nazis were not religious. And
And
when
yet
asked
they
about,
made it their mission to persecute a religion.
yeah, make it make sense.
Make it make sense.
Um, when asked about the whole experience, Gillis was unapologetic about her Nazi association. So
Shocker.
she spent all these years in prison, not enough, actually,
No.
and she converts to Catholicism and is sort of just left alone. From what it seems, she died of colon cancer in 1988. And she's sort of pushed into the background a little bit. No one ever really mentions her again. And then she dies. She dies of colon cancer in the 80s. So she's
And
88
you don't know,
at the
did she
time of
die
her death.
alone, right? Did she die alone? This German husband she had, what happened?
Yeah, that's never really clear. Like
That's
the
never really clear
fiance
in anything
slash
we
the
read about her,
husband.
is that, what happened to the
No.
German husband? What happened to the German boyfriend?
But like we said earlier, that's so minuscule in
It
comparison
is. It
to
is.
everything else that
Which
she
is
did.
surprising that it's minuscule in comparison, because a lot of times it's the man's story that you get the bulk of, not the woman.
Yeah, which is
So,
why I found it so interesting to read about, and it's why I really wanted to talk about it because you don't get this much meat with a woman's story,
gotta,
despite the
you
fact
really
that
have
she
to
was a
dig to get
terrible
this
woman.
much. Yeah, you have to dig to get this
Yeah.
much meat on a woman's story. And we've done that.
Mm.
But the fact that this is just out there for the taking,
Readily available.
readily available, I think proves how terrible of a person she was.
The fact that this much is known about her and the fact that this much information is accessible about her proves that that's how bad things were.
Yeah.
That's how bad she
She,
was.
I mean, it's the coming out of prison 12 after 12 years. So you get a 10 to 30-year sentence. You get released after 12 years for good behavior.
Yeah, essentially, it's what it was. She converts
And
to Catholicism and then is deemed good
deemed
after that.
good. You get out
Yeah.
after 12 years, you've paid, I'm assuming you've paid your $10,000 fine, or somebody has paid it for you.
Yeah, so weirdly, that is also never mentioned that she pays the
Because
$10,000 fine
$10,000
all of a
was a lot. I
sudden
mean, $10,000 is a lot of money now, but $10,000 was a
now, but
lot of money
then,
then.
yeah, exactly. It's never mentioned if she paid it or if someone else paid it for her.
Like people today, when they get hit with bail or a fine, it's millions or
Yeah,
hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars.
yeah.
So
How did
$10,000 is a
that
lot of
happen?
money in the 40s.
Yeah, I will come back to that as we go through Tokyo Rose because
Yes. Yeah.
you will see the I've said to you before we began this that they were similar but different, two sides of the same coin.
Yes.
So I we will come back to that because it's where the prejudice comes in between these two women.
It is.
So
And
Tokyo Rose didn't name herself. It was a name given by the Allied troops who were serving in the Pacific Theater. She never called herself that,
that was a
unlike
name, right?
Mildred
They gave it to
Gillis.
any woman that was on the radio. Just any woman that was English speaking was named Tokyo Rose. So there could have been 12,
Yeah,
15 of them.
there could have been a whole entire group of them across different radio stations,
Right.
and they couldn't differentiate because they were, of course, very busy fighting a war
Of
rather than to
course.
take notice of who's talking to them. They wouldn't have heard the differences. They wouldn't have maybe taken notice of the different
Hmm.
radio stations if there were multiple. But
Again, it's not
Tokyo
like
Rose was,
today where there's
yeah,
50 stations. You can turn the dial and
yeah,
find anything you want.
yeah. So her name was Iva Tagiri. She was born in Los Angeles, California. Her father had come to the US in 1899, and her mother had arrived in 1913.
Right.
So by being born here in the USA, by default, she was a US citizen. She had never been to Japan, nor did she speak fluent Japanese. She spoke some basic Japanese, I assume, because her
Her
parents
parents, enough to get by.
were
Yeah.
raised there. Yeah.
Yeah. I would imagine it's
Um,
kind of like, when you have, like, I think about like my mother was first generation Italian American, born to Italian immigrants.
yeah. Yeah.
She picked up, I mean, English was my mother's first language, is my mother's first
Mm.
language, but she also speaks fluent Sicilian dialect because she just picked it up at home. That's what her
That's
parents
just
spoke.
how,
Yeah, that's what her
yeah.
parents spoke. So, and I would imagine that's what happened with Iva, is that she just would
Yes.
learn the basics
And she picked up enough to get
enough to get
by.
by. Yeah.
Conversational skills. Again,
Yeah.
it's never really made obvious in the things that you read about her, but that's the assumption,
Yeah.
is that
Yeah.
she knew enough to get by. Her mother got word that her sister, Iva's aunt, was sick in Japan, and
Hmm.
her mother couldn't go herself because her mother was also sick. So she sent her daughter Iva in her place, and she leaves the USA for Japan on July 5th, 1941, the day after her 25th birthday. It gets slightly confusing around this part because despite being a US citizen, she did not have a passport.
I
So
don't
I'm
think
not,
passports were as commonplace as they are today.
yeah. So she was given a certificate of identification from the US State Department, which they
Yeah.
then deem not an official document to return to the country later
Right.
on.
So remember when we read up on Hazel Yingli and
Yes.
she was going to China to fight with the Chinese army or the Chinese Air
Yeah.
Force?
Mm-hmm.
The hoops she went through to get a passport, and then she still had this certificate of identification, and it was still
Yeah.
not enough to get her home when she wanted. She had to go through hoops again on the other side to come back,
Yeah.
which
Very
is
similar
why these
situation.
certificate of identifications from the United States being official documents in the sense they didn't really they were official enough to get you out of the country, but
They weren't
see if they
official
would
enough to
get you
get you
back
back
in.
in.
They didn't carry enough juice
Absolutely
to
not.
get you back in, which is
Yeah,
mind-boggling to me
I know.
that
Doesn't
this
make
has enough power to get me out. It should have enough power to get me in.
Yeah, it seems a bit off to me that someone who's traveling to an Asian country can leave America to go to said Asian country, but they
During a
cannot
time of war.
return. Yeah. So yeah, this even before Pearl Harbor had
It's before
happened. So
Pearl
the
Harbor, but now
US,
Japan is already at war with China.
yes, yeah.
And the fact that America let the United States let her go willingly to a
Hmm.
country at war,
Yeah.
that's
Um,
another piece of this puzzle that blows my mind.
yeah, she tries to come home before Pearl Harbor
Mm,
because while she's in Japan, she senses it's not a good time to be an American in Japan.
well,
And it's to
yes.
the point where her aunt's neighbors think that she's a spy. They think that she's an American spy. So she has to, after her aunt has recovered, she has to move out of her aunt's house and she's essentially by herself. She can't go home because this document she's been given is not valid to bring her home. She can't get a passport because she's seen as an enemy right after Pearl Harbor. So she's, even though she is American, she's a citizen, she was born here in the US, they still believe that she is an enemy purely because she's Japanese. I believe it was something ridiculous, like the issue to round Japanese Americans up and put them in these internment camps was like 1/16 Japanese. That was the requirement.
Yeah.
They had to be in 1/16,
It's like
which is nothing.
if he
That's
even looked it,
everyone.
if he even had a
Yeah.
semblance of Asian blood,
Mm-hmm.
physicality, that's it.
1/16,
You were in.
which is insane. Crazy.
1/16th, please.
She wanted to be back home to help her family, of course, after Pearl Harbor, because she didn't want them to be going to these internment camps by themselves. And so she found it increasingly difficult to leave.
Right.
Um, but she, as any strong woman does, she made it her mission to survive as she could. She took Japanese lessons and she got a job at Radio Tokyo. This is kind of where everything falls
Falls
down.
apart. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Toguri, along with a bunch of other Japanese Americans working at Radio Tokyo, were pressured to renounce their American citizenship, but she refused
Mm.
because she obviously had been born here. She did not want to turn her back on her country, but she needed this job in order to survive because she couldn't go home. So she thought, let me make the best of this terrible situation.
Right. So this is where she differs from Access Sally.
Yes. Yeah.
Access Sally said, I'm, hands up. I'm
I'm a
done. I'm
Nazi.
German. From here on out, I'm German.
Yeah.
I'm fighting with the Axis powers. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
Iva really was just like, no, I'm American. I refuse to renounce my citizenship.
But they won't
I'm
let me go
going to do
home. So
everything
I
I
have
can
to,
to survive until I get home, which is
essentially, yeah.
the sad part.
Yeah, this story is incredibly sad.
Her story is
So
sad. Yeah, her
so
story is
so
very
sad.
sad.
So she refuses to give up her citizenship, and then she's then declared an enemy alien, and was refused a ration card.
Jesus
Again, this
Christ.
is when the story gets a little bit difficult because she's refused the ration card, and yet she's working with these American/Australian POWs at Radio Tokyo. And the food that she buys for herself, she shares with these malnourished
Yeah.
POWs that she works with. I'm saying works with, air quotes, works with, because these people were forced to work rather than be in the camps. So she is someone who has literally nothing. She can't even get a ration card, and she's still giving. She's still giving her food to prisoners that she works with
Yeah.
at this radio station, which you have nothing and you're still giving. Like, it speaks volumes to the kind of person that she was in comparison to Mildred,
Oh, absolutely.
I think. So, um, in 1943, Allied POWs were forced to broadcast propaganda, and Ivor was selected to host one of the portions of a 1 hour long show called The 0 Hour. Her producer was an Australian Army major called Charles Cousins, and he and Taguri both refused to broadcast the propaganda. Charles had been coerced into saying all these horrible things against his country and
Right.
for Japan. So they both essentially decided to make a farce of it. They used their English to their advantage. They would take the script and make it very full of double entendres, full of sarcasm. There's a transcript in Our Mother's War of one of the shows, and Ivor begins playing the UCLA fight song. That was her alma mater. And she comes back on the air and she says, "Wow, lots of bad stuff in there, gang." It's something so silly. And she plays things like Bing Crosby. She also played American music, but she did not intersperse it with venom
No,
and
she
vitriol.
got away
A
with
lot of
she got away with sarcasm, and a lot of it is due to the fact that her bosses,
didn't speak very good
they didn't
English, so
speak
the
very good
double
English, and they couldn't pick
entendres,
up on sarcasm. They
it
wouldn't pick
flew
up on
over
it the
their
way we
heads.
do. No.
So it seems her and Major Charles Cousins had a bit of a giggle together about that because they were told to say all these horrible, horrific things
Which might be the only bright
about their
spot in
home
this story
countries.
so far, is that she
Is that
found a way to make it funny and
yes,
kind of let the GIs on the Allied side know, like, hey, we're here, but
yeah,
we're here against our will, so to speak.
but yeah,
While you have to hear from us in a way, have it with a side of,
have it with
the
a
side
side
of
of humor.
sarcasm. Yeah, have it with a side of
Um,
humor.
and then
Technically I'm on your side, basically, is what she had said.
yeah, she signaled to the listeners, to the GIs, that she was not to be taken seriously.
Mm,
She would obviously say that in her native language, which was American. But at the same time, there is a group of people who are now classed as Tokyo Rose, and they're not going to be able to tell the difference because, again, there's no pictures of these women,
right.
there's no descriptions of these women. Very much like when Mildred Gill posed as a Red Cross worker, you are not going to know that you are talking to Axis Sally. Very
Right.
much you would not have known if you saw Iva Taguri, because they had named this group of Japanese American women Tokyo Rose. You would not have known the difference. A lot of them were spouting pro Japanese propaganda on the radio,
Right.
and you wouldn't have known that Iva was the one that was filling it with sarcasm and humor and don't take me seriously.
Hmm.
So that's where it gets
Tricky.
difficult, tricky. Yeah, because the GIs had named all of these Japanese American women Tokyo Rose. You would not be able to pick the only good one, quote
Yeah.
unquote, out of a group of people.
No.
There is another bright spot. In April of 45, she married a Portuguese citizen. His name was Felipe d'Aquino. And when Japan surrendered, she was planning to go home to America with her husband, and they were going to start a family. But by this point, they're so desperate for money that someone from Cosmopolitan comes to her and offers her $2,000 for an exclusive interview.
Right.
She's that desperate to go home and somehow gain a passport. She takes it, but when she arrives there, she's arrested. She's arrested on counts of treason because she never officially renounces her citizenship because she did not want to. She was the only Japanese American in Radio Tokyo that was arrested for treason because she was the only one that did not renounce her US
Right.
citizenship. And it was a man named Kenji Oki who had moved to Japan before the war. And he told these two potential interviewers that Iva hadn't renounced her citizenship. So that's what made her eligible to be tried for treason. He took the $2,000 and ran. You never really hear from him again.
Well.
A lot of people think that this was a way for him to deflect from the crimes of his wife, who had also not officially announced her citizenship, but was spouting pro-Japanese, anti-American propaganda
That would do
on
it.
the radio. So his wife was also a quote
Tokyo
unquote
Rose.
Tokyo
Yeah.
Rose, but because they were all grouped together, you couldn't
There
tell
was
one from the
no
other.
way to differentiate.
It was
Iva.
projection and
Yeah, of course.
deflection, and he gets $2,000 and he's out of there. See ya. She's arrested at her Tokyo apartment. She was not allowed to notify a lawyer. So even though she has not renounced her citizenship, she is not awarded due process, which I don't think was such a big thing then as it is now.
No, I don't think.
she's not.
I don't know how. I don't know. I can't even say for
Don't know
certain.
how it all works.
Like Miranda rights and all that.
Yeah,
You know, I
but she was
don't know
still
if
not
those were
allowed to
ever
notify
read like the way they are now.
Yes,
I don't know.
but she was still not allowed to notify a lawyer.
That
once
part
the
is the
attorney-
part that is 100% wrong. She should have
is
been
horrific,
Yeah.
terrible.
She should have been able to at least
should have
contact a
been-
lawyer.
Yeah. Once the Attorney General restated constantly that Iva was not the Tokyo Rose, she was released in 1946, but during that time between October 17th and her release date in 46, she's not ever tried or charged with anything. She's just in prison for no reason.
Right.
And a lot of American people campaigned for her rearrest, particularly J. Edgar Hoover and a gossip columnist called Walter Winchell.
America was still very
Winchell.
America was still very salty after the
Yes.
war.
This is when the prejudice kind of comes in.
You know, they're just looking at a Japanese woman, a Japanese American woman, and they're saying your country is the reason we entered this war.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's as simple as that in a time like 1945 where life was pretty black and white and pretty simple.
Mm-hmm.
Not like today where, you know,
you can research things a bit deeper and who's who.
Not even that. Everything is on the record. Everybody's got phones. Everybody whips their phone out and takes a video, takes a picture. There's proof. There's 17 different angles of the same photo. It's
and
just
the same video.
And the same video and, you know, goes viral. Life was black and white. Life was simple back then. It was as easy for them to point the finger and say, your country's the reason this started, you know.
And you're the only one that
did not. Right.
Yeah. Everything I've read about Walter Winchell or heard about him, because you know, and our listeners are aware that I'm very into old Hollywood and that era.
Oh yeah.
The story about Walter Winchell, the reason I don't really like him is because when Lucille Ball thought she was pregnant with their first child, Lucy, she goes to the doctor and she gets a pregnancy test. She found out through the radio that night that she was pregnant because Walter Winchell had gone to the doctor's office, taken her urine sample, and asked them to test it. So she
basically, Walter Winchell was a piece of shit.
Pretty much. He found out that she was there. He goes to the doctor and says, hey, what does that say? The urine sample. Oh, yeah, she's pregnant. So Lucille Ball and her husband, Desianas, find out that they're having their daughter, Lucy, through the friggin' radio because Walter Winchell had gone in and essentially nabbed Lucille Ball's urine.
Which is illegal today, by the way, guys.
Very illegal today.
Very illegal. Probably very illegal back then, too, but
isn't that insane?
That's...
So when I saw his name...
Don't get me started, please.
When I saw his name in all this research, I was like, fork found in kitchen.
Did you pull on the thread? You pulled on the thread?
Yeah, he's just there when you don't need him to be. He's there all the time and everything around this era. He's stuck his finger in a lot of pies, too many pies, and made an entire mess. He's sort of like old Hollywood's Perez Hilton. Remember when that was a thing?
Ooh, yeah. But
he's
I
essentially
in the one sense that Perez Hilton, I don't think Perez Hilton commits illegal acts.
No, he definitely did a few times.
I'm not deep into Hollywood gossip, okay? So
I'm not deep in today's. I'm very deep in...
I'm not deep in today's Hollywood gossip. I'm not deep
40s.
into who's who in Hollywood today.
Agreed.
I couldn't tell you who's on the top 40 countdown.
Our top 40 is the 1940s gap.
Yes.
So the Attorney General restates that she's not Tokyo Rose. In the interim, while her rearrest is being campaigned for, Iva and Philippe are expecting a baby.
Mm-hmm.
And Iva wants to be able to go home, of course, so the child can be born in America and be an American citizen like her. However, this was not. It didn't happen. Her baby was born in Japan in January of 1947, and unfortunately, the baby passed away the next morning, which is incredibly sad. This woman has
gone through
bad luck after bad luck.
Yeah.
This
all
poor
to,
woman,
all
I
to
feel
just
horrible
do
for her.
All to just take care of a sick family member. This is what happens.
Who recovered. The aunt that she was taking care of
fully
recovered after a number of weeks. Isn't that horrific? And in the time that Iva's been in Japan, her family's been rounded up and sent to these internment camps that had been set up. And her mother had passed away in this time that she hasn't gone home between 1941 and this present point. So the reason she was rearrested was because Mildred Gillers was standing trial. She was arrested again in 48
and sent back to the States
on grounds of treason. And then she finally gets to come home. She's shipped to San Francisco and she arrives back in the States in September of 48. This is the first time she'd been home
in 7 years.
In all those years. A series of witnesses were brought over from Japan to the US, and it cost the government $75,000. Her trial was the most expensive of the time. So they spend all this money
just to
bring these witnesses over to testify. Yeah, and her side was a lot weaker because her father, who was starting all over again after having all of his possessions taken from him at this internment camp he was rounded up into,
losing his wife.
He has no money. Losing his wife. He has no money.
Basically lost his daughter to the Japanese government.
Yeah, essentially. He's got no money. He's got no savings because in these internment camps, even if you worked jobs, you were only given
you were paid little to nothing. Little to nothing.
You were paid, even if you were very, very highbrow in your regular life, you lost everything.
Yeah.
So her dad's paying for the defense, and it's so much weaker than the prosecution because her dad's paying for everything and he doesn't have any money. The worst part of all of this is that her husband is not allowed to enter the US because he's seen as an enemy by default because he's married to Iva.
Right.
So he's allowed to enter the country and testify on his wife's behalf, but he had to post money to ensure that he would leave the US as soon as his testimony was done. He did as he was told on the promise that he could stay. They said, if you give us this money, you can stay and your wife will be released. So he testifies and he never sees his wife again. He's not allowed back into the US. Oki reappears. His testimony was the basis for Iva's conviction. So even after all these years of him lying, that one
taking his $2,000 and running.
Yeah, Iva is convicted and sentenced to 10 years in prison. And she gets the same $10,000 fine. Now, when I said we're going back to that $10,000 fine, here we are. Iva served 6 years and was released on good behavior in 1958. For 2 years after her release, she fought off deportation. So even though she didn't renounce her citizenship, they took it from her anyway. She fights off deportation for 2 years and then worked another 15 years to pay off that $10,000 fine. There's no record or any research into Mildred having to pay it. So why are we making Iva pay it?
This is...
It's horrific. This is when I get so heated about this because they treated them... The person that went against her country and spouted anti-Semitic, anti-American nonsense is treated better than the person that didn't want to do any of this.
It's because she didn't look like the enemy.
Exactly.
She didn't, even though she clearly stated, I stand with the enemy. She didn't look like the enemy.
Yep.
Whereas
Whereas Iva did.
have Iva, who was not the enemy, was a citizen of the
Mm.
United States. All she wanted to do was go home.
And she
She
was just trying to survive in a place that where she
she
was forced to be.
yeah, she did what she
She
could
had
to
no choice.
survive.
Yeah.
And because she looked a certain way, she looked like the enemy, America
Mhm.
said, no,
Yeah.
no.
The worst part, I've already said this is the worst part, but this is the worser part. 30 years later, the man who falsely turned her in, he admitted to an American reporter that he'd lied.
Of course.
They maintained that the story had been made up under threat by the US government, much to the behest of J. Edgar Hoover, who was one of the prominent people who called for Ivor to be arrested on
Yeah.
counts of treason.
I'm going to
It's
sound like my
just
mother again,
disgusting.
but like guilt is a wonderful thing.
Guilt is a wonderful thing, and I hope it ate him up
I
every day.
absolutely must have. I mean, and there he is thinking 30 years later he can say what he's got to say and nobody will.
Yeah.
So basically he confesses 30 years later. What the hell happens to him?
I Googled him and I Googled Ivor's husband, and I get nothing on Ivor's
Mm.
husband. You see a picture of him through the National Archives.
I don't imagine we
There's
would get much
nothing.
on her husband. He was basically told to go back into the shadows and hide.
They had to divorce, very reluctantly had to divorce because she wouldn't go back to Japan. He couldn't come over
Come
here because
back.
he was
Yeah.
blocked. They reluctantly divorce in after she's released, I believe. Again, it's never really obvious. Um, there is a happy ending. You know what I'm saying?
It's a delayed
Yeah,
happy ending, but uh President Ford,
yeah.
who
He had
was
fought in the
he fought in the Pacific during World War II. So at the time now, it's the 70s. He's the president.
yeah,
President Ford pardons Iva of treason. This is
yeah.
36 years after she
Mm-hmm.
left to go take care of her sick aunt who recovered. I would
Yeah,
bet that the aunt probably had like the common cold. All of this stems from doing a good deed.
yeah.
And
Essentially,
this is the textbook definition of bad things happen to good people.
good people. Yeah.
It's the
So
textbook definition.
she's pardoned by by President Gerald Ford. That pardon also restored her US citizenship, which I think it's disgusting that she fought to keep it for so long in the face of the enemy. And then the people that are supposed to take care of her snatched it from her because they
Right?
believe she was treasonous.
She never
Um,
renounces it. They take it anyway.
yep. She died in 2006 at the age of 90 of natural causes.
It makes me happy to know that she lived a longer life than Axis Sally and that she died of natural
Yeah.
causes. I hope she died peacefully. This is not me wishing death on anybody. Let's just
Yeah,
be
of
very clear
course.
on that.
Uh-huh.
But this is almost the universe's way of saying that, you kind of get what you put out into the world, right? You put
Yeah.
out bad into this world, you're going to get it back. If
Yeah, absolutely.
you go through life with good intentions,
Mm,
then you will
definitely.
reap the benefits of good intention. And I think
Yeah.
that's also very clear in the way that Mildred Gillers lived after she was released from prison and
She had to
how,
make herself look good
yeah,
by
she had to,
the
she was
Catholicism.
forced to make herself look good. She finds God in jail. And by finding God, she's released on good behavior.
Yeah.
Whereas Iva really just, I mean, fought to stay with her country, fought to remain a citizen, took the punishment she was handed, and then just still continued to fight and fight and fight for what she knew was right. And eventually it
Yeah.
caught up with her. The fight for good eventually caught up with her, which is,
Yeah.
I mean, yes, a happy ending to her story,
It's so
but
incredibly, incredibly sad. And I fully believe that it was prejudice purely because, like you said,
yeah,
she looked like the enemy
yeah.
and Mildred did not. She
I
didn't
mean,
look.
this country's guilty of it still today, prejudice based on what you look like.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's just,
Through,
it's,
yeah.
it shouldn't be. It
It
shouldn't
shouldn't be
be.
the way it is,
It shouldn't be
but
the way it
it
is.
is.
And I mean, look, we're all guilty at one point of, you're walking down the street and you see somebody who looks sketchy. I do it. I work in
Mm.
Manhattan and I live in the city. There are definitely some unsavory characters on the
Yeah.
street, and you see somebody that doesn't look the most, safe to be crossing
Mm.
paths with, you cross the street, you go
Yeah.
to the other side of the street. Doesn't mean they're a bad person, but in your head,
You're like, ah,
it doesn't look safe, right? It doesn't look safe, so
yeah,
you cross the street.
absolutely. Yeah.
And a lot of
Doing,
people do it as a defense mechanism, which is, I think,
yeah,
and I'm not
absolutely they do.
excusing America for what they did to Iva in the
No,
40s, but
absolutely.
it was a defense mechanism for
For
protection.
sure. Yeah. And especially, you're not going to go against important people like J.
No,
Edgar Hoover. You're not
no,
going to be like, actually, no, sir. Um,
right.
doing all this research, whenever you and I do a very research heavy episode, looking through Find a Grave, and I put in these two women's names, and even in death, the prejudice is still incredibly strong. They are both labeled as anti-American broadcasters, and there is a big wall of text for both of these women.
Mm.
For Iva, it says that she went against her country and she was always the enemy purely because she's Japanese American, and how dare she.
Right.
You then look at Mildred's, and it says that she was coerced. It says that she was forced to do it.
No
It says that
33-year-old woman who makes the decision to have an affair with a married man is coerced into anything.
no, it says that
I,
she was coerced into
no.
it, and she was told she had to, but she moved to Germany of her own volition,
Yeah.
and she's not adding these humorous double entendres.
No,
Iva is.
this is the woman who posed as a Red Cross worker.
Yeah.
Like, that is it. In my
Yeah.
book, that's it. I would have given
That's
her the
it.
book for that. Enough, right?
Yeah. The dichotomy of posing as a Red Cross worker and meeting with these POWs and taking their very heartfelt recordings and
Yeah.
manipulating it. And then on the other side, you've got Iva, who has nothing because of circumstances out of her control.
Yeah.
She's still giving her food to the American POWs in Japan that are working with her at Radio Tokyo. She's still giving, and
Yeah.
Mildred is taking away.
Yeah. One is giving, one is taking.
So the fact that that prejudice is
And they
still
have
so
they still have them both classified as
anti-American
anti-American
broadcasters.
broadcasters. Yeah.
But
No.
Iva is said to have done it of her own volition, that she was the Tokyo Rose and spouted this hateful propaganda. But Mildred was coerced. And the second I read that, I said, let me think why. Let me think why the white American woman, in comparison to the Japanese American woman, the Japanese were seen as a far bigger enemy, I feel, here in comparison to the Nazis.
Despite one being so different than the other, America has still classified them as the same.
Yeah. Two sides of the same
of the same coin.
They were both American. They were both broadcasters. However, one was full of hate and anti-American vitriol, and the other was just trying to have herself survive in a circumstance in which she did not choose.
I think you could put the word coerced by Iva.
I think
she
you could
was.
too.
I mean, she got stuck there.
No,
she had no choice. She was stuck there, and not of her own choosing to be stuck there. And she was coerced into this propaganda radio job, which she, to the best of her ability, turned into a side of humor. Yeah, and it still didn't help her. And I think if you really want to say one of them was coerced, it was Iva.
It was Iva.
Not Mildred.
Axis Sally was the true enemy, yet was treated better based on the pure fact that she was not Japanese American. And it makes me so angry and upset that this
does.
poor woman, Iva, had to go through all of that. She loses her mother in the midst of it. She has to reluctantly divorce her husband because she's not ever going back to Japan. Because if
Loses
she
her
goes
child.
back after this, loses her child. If she goes back to Japan after all this, then yeah, she is the enemy. And she's, no, I never was and I never will be.
Right.
She loses everything to prove a point. And still, they, even in death, the
Can't get it right.
audacity
They
to
can't get
say
it
that
right.
she did it of her own free will, but Mildred was coerced, I think is disgusting. It's horrible. But I really do recommend going through the National Archives and typing in Iva Taguri's name, and you will hear mini broadcasts. You can hear the humor and the sarcasm in her
Yeah.
voice. You can kind of get the cadence of, oh, that's not what that means. They're very fuzzy, but it's still a great piece of history to listen to.
Absolutely.
I believe there are some Axis Sally ones on there too. There is one here in the World War II exhibit at the Museum of Flight here in Seattle.
Is there?
And they have like mini radios around the exhibits, and you can turn the dial. And there's one that is an Axis Sally broadcast, and she's yelling in German, and then it goes into Bing Crosby.
Jesus.
It's very strange, but
I
it's
don't know that
very
I would want to.
fascinating.
I'm sure it's very fascinating, and I say this now because I'm not anywhere near the Museum of Flight, so I can't say that I have the opportunity to listen to it right now, but I don't know that right now I would want to,
Mm-hmm.
based on what we know about her. I don't know if I
Lots of
could
people
listen
do
to it
not.
without getting angry, right?
Yeah. Someone did it recently when I was there. They turned it, and then I heard them go, "Ooh," and they switched it back to
That would
something else. And
probably
I
be
was
my
like,
reaction too. Ooh.
I said, yeah, that makes sense. And there was one point it stopped working. I think they cut it out or they took it away for a minute or something. I don't know. But there was one point it would not play. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
it is a piece of history that should be heard, even if
Yeah.
it's horrific history. But at the same time, I
Yeah.
don't want to hear that. Does
No.
that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. And if I do hear it, it makes you angry. And it should
Yeah,
make
it
you
ooh,
angry. It should, right? So this is something that should
absolutely it
make
should.
you angry. And I
Yeah.
think that's the whole point of this episode, is to remind everybody that the war was not just the Hollywood canteen and women in victory red lipstick and USO dances.
Mhm.
The war was real, and it should
Yeah.
make you angry. The dirty side of
Yeah.
it, the gritty side of it should bring out those emotions and make you angry and make
Absolutely.
you want to still carry on as a good person because of what the Allied soldiers fought for.
Yes, absolutely. It should still make you want to make a difference in the world because that is what the game was.
Yeah,
Just that was the reason for all of this.
absolutely. We are approaching 81 years from victory.
Mm-hmm.
Just because 81 years have passed does not mean that that victory means anything less.
I agree.
So many people
Absolutely.
fought, so many people gave their blood, their sweat, their lives.
Yeah.
Do not make it mean less. If anything,
Yes.
we should make it mean more.
Yeah. Especially now.
Especially now, we should make it mean more.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I agree. And I think that's a really good note to end it on.
I do too.
Honestly.
And with that, we will say goodbye for now, and we will see you
Yes.
guys and catch you all very soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for listening, everybody, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.